before we got to the point where we are today. So our team are very knowledgeable in terms of the site, very knowledgeable in terms of the project. And what I'd like to emphasize today is our knowledge of this project. And I can assure you that both Mcdowmat and Sinopec of legacy requirements and trying to generate something that we can call a legacy after this, as well as in our subcontracting process, that we go through each one of these boxes, afforded the opportunity to try and bid and win or be part of a joint venture in terms of this project of Telenga. We have spent some time in terms of the skills and aspects that we already have to also just give me some help in terms of some of them.
The points that are below in terms of strategy, we are currently trying to put a national content and social responsibility management team in place, where right now I am performing that capability and putting social management systems in place, but we are transferring that to local. We're going to perform a lot of training of Ugandan citizens, which is actually something that we already did during the programs. We're going to be collaborating with Total Energies and our subcontractors in these programs. The same for business capacity development. We have a few programs for technology transfer of goods and services. Jason will be speaking a little bit more ahead. We'll be having local partnerships, and of course the reporting is going to be crucial because it all comes to the transparency.
Because I think it's very important that we pass on these, knowing these aspects is important, engaged with a lot of local contractors already, to make sure that those international companies that are going to come to Uganda can try and enter into joint venture relationships with local subcontractors. There's relationships between the parties that those international contracts. The other aspect, I think, is that we understand the requirements in terms of national content, and we do it on a regular basis, making sure that we provide Total PAU practices and procedures. Thank you, Miguel. I have a statement here, and I think we really are, to the maximum extent possible, we'll be utilizing Ugandan companies, people, and utilize in terms of engagement with local contractors. And to give everybody on this session today an idea where they can get involved. We are really at the beginning of the journey in terms of this can be involved. Included in our requirements, and the second bullet on the slide just talks about on-job training. I think one of the aspects that Mcdowmat as a company and managing the project here, we will be doing is training of people during the life of the project. And I think the other thing is looking at legacy type initiatives is also going to be something that we will concentrate on during the project. Having worked on several remote location projects in Africa, trying to see some of those legacy initiatives start from the beginning and see how they can end by the end of the project, leaving some of those legacy initiatives in place is very rewarding and something that we're looking to do here. Mariana, in terms of, I think from your side here, anything that you'd like to add, maybe in terms of local communities?
No, I think a crucial part of the strategy in terms of national content is not to just be focused in the oil and gas industry, as you were saying. So the sustainability in terms of the jobs that are created that can be applicable to oil and gas, but to different industries. And the same with providing goods and services, including from the local communities. That's going to be a crucial strategy, because The consortium, Mcdowmat Sinopec, is going to be there for a relatively short amount of time in the big scheme of things. And we want Ugandans not only to be able to participate in the construction phase, but then to be able to be in operations, maintenance, and other industries in the country, including but not limited to other oil and gas projects.
Thank you, Mariana. Well, if we can go on to the next slide. So there's a lot of writing on this slide, but I think the key message is that we understand the legislative requirements from the PAU, the aspects around needing to be on the national database, as well as the Total Energy specifics that they have given to us to make sure that we comply with the requirements of local content on this project. So we will include several measurement tools in our supply chain process, not only to identify which bidders we will go to, but make sure that they are registered in that national database. We will make sure that throughout the supply chain process that we measure our subcontractors and our suppliers in terms of their national content plans and submissions, but also in terms of their commitment to utilizing labor and people of Uganda. The other key aspect is that there are certain aspects that are ring-fenced in terms of needing to be executed by Ugandan companies. And Mariana and I will continue to review all of the aspects here to make sure that we can comply, that those goods and services that are ring-fenced are awarded to local contractors. The other aspect that I just want to talk about on this slide is quality and safety. As Mcdowmat and as a company, we have a very high safety and quality standard, and we need to comply with all of the Total specifications and requirements on the project. And those in an oil and gas industry, I would like to think are some of the highest that we have in the construction industry anywhere in the world. So we do have a lot of practices, procedures, policies, and requirements in terms of safety standards and quality standards. I would like to say that our commitment, though, is that people should not be afraid of those quality and safety standards, and that we will work together as Mcdowmat and contractors and suppliers to make sure that we can maintain the safety and the quality aspects. We can go on to the next slide. What I wanted to do on this slide is to give everybody listening here today an idea on what's going to happen over the supply chain phase, which is going to last for the next 12 to 14 months on this project. And I've highlighted here are some of them. Now there's about 18 to 20 subcontracts here, but overall we will have about 50 subcontracts that are planned to be awarded. And I will just spend a minute on each one of these just to give everybody listening here today an idea on some of the scopes of work that we will be having here. Total Energies, as part of their scope, are doing the site preparation right now, and that's creating a platform and for us to continue with our project on the CPF and the associated. After that, we will get a general civils subcontractor. We plan to have a single subcontractor for the CPF area. And a key aspect of the civil contractor will be the supply of the aggregates, cements, and all of the stones and commodities that are required to be able to do that work. In evaluating that civil contractor, we will then need to have a look at their second tier procurement side in terms of who is going to be providing those components taken in terms of being able to do civil works. And that is one of the aspects that is ring-fenced in terms of the requirements in terms of the lead capacity in the central processing facility. And there will be just over 8 or 9 tanks that are required for this. These are large panel tanks, and those will be erected in the site area. We have some buildings, so we're having a look at separating buildings from a process area and a non-process area at the minute. And this, again, the building scope is an opportunity for local Ugandan contractors. I just mentioned the quality and the safety standards again, that the requirements for working in this environment are going to be a lot higher than those working in an infrastructure environment, but we will work together with that. Our largest subcontract for this project, which is possible, local contractors that can support this contractor. We have separated piping fabrication and are currently looking at if we can do piping fabrication either in the country of Uganda or out of the country of Uganda. But we will continue to have a look at what we can do in terms of that fabrication scope. Electrical and instrumentation is a separate subcontract, and it will really mean that the structural mechanical piping as well as the E&I contractor work very closely together, because there is a lot of interface required between those two subcontracts. None of these subcontractors will be able to do their work without what is the next section and some of the, I would say, more attainable aspects in terms of local subcontractors, and that's in the development of what we call indirect work. And here we're looking at camp construction, where we're looking at having between 2,000 and 3,000 people on site at any given time. We will house people at the project site, but we will also utilize people in the surrounding areas of the location and have a bus in and bus out aspect for those people on the site. We have other aspects in terms of execution, and just having a look at those, a lot of people will be able to get involved in things like camp management services, medical services, waste management, security, etc. The last aspect that I'll just concentrate on this slide is the logistics aspects and key risks that has been identified by ourselves is the safe management of our goods and services to the project location. So what aspects can be included in those subcontracts that we saw on the previous slide? Well, that in terms of utilizing Ugandan companies. I know that this is as well as with others, to try and identify the people that can get involved in these goods and services requirements. Miguel, if we can go on to the next one, please. I wanted to just talk a little bit about respecting human rights just for a minute, because it's going to be a very important aspect on this project. Mariana and her team in terms of sustainability at Mcdowmat really do strive in terms of these 10 aspects and very important aspects in terms of respecting human rights. And I'll just ask Mariana maybe to highlight 2 or 3 of those aspects.
Yeah, so I would just like to very quickly, we are part of Building Responsibly, which is an organization of EPC companies that define worker welfare principles, which are minimum human rights that need to be followed at all times by operators, contractors, and subcontractors. And so we have a lot of human rights in our social management system for this particular project. We will be having self-assessments, we will be having audits, but most importantly, or as importantly as finding what gaps are, we'll be having a lot of training in terms of human rights, so that subcontractors or suppliers who may not fully understand. Sometimes it's just, for instance, a clause in a contract that nobody was really paying attention to. We will be verifying all of those things and training people to recognize, specifically, of course, in the most important ones like forced traffic and child labor, dignity, respect, and fairness, discrimination, adequate living, and working conditions for the workers.
Thanks, Mariana. So I wanted to just provide an idea. What I said a little bit earlier, Stans, is this will be a supply chain process for the next 12 months. But some of the purchase orders, we call those subcontract development schedule, SDSs or RPSRs in terms of procurement. We've also flowed down all of the requirements in terms of our terms and conditions. Mariana and her team have put together a detailed national content plan, an appendix that will form part of every one of our subcontracts for this project. And as the Total Energies procurement lead has also explained, we have also set up our specific technical and commercial bid evaluation scorecards. We also have a requirement in terms of issuing letters of regret. And as Total Energies, we also do a one-to-one session if required. All bidders will need to be able to comply with these requirements. And I think what we will find is that our bidders to these will be spending a lot more time in country. We will also make sure that we have site visits so that people are up to speed in terms of what those site aspects are like before the award of this project, before these individual subcontracts. We can have the next slide, please. We recently joined Total Energies and others in terms of the oil and gas conference. And we presented these two slides, which is any individual or any supplier or contractor, subcontractor that wants to do business with Mcdowmat is welcome to log in and to provide this level of detail, which gives us a good way forward in terms of being able to identify a subcontractor or a supplier for our specific scopes of work that I showed earlier. I am happy to say that we've had a real good success rate in terms of people and responses from that session that we had a couple of weeks ago. So thanks to those maybe that are on this call today for this project. Mariana, just in terms of this aspect, I think both supply chain and you and your department, we're going to look at this together. And you can see that some of those aspects in terms of contact and previous experience will be looked at, but Mariana will also look at some of the other more sustainability related aspects as well.
Yeah, so in terms, for instance, in diversity status, we're particularly interested in women-owned businesses. The Nsd certification is a must, so you can upload it there too, and any other certifications that you might have in terms of ISO or any other things that you want to upload. You can even be brochures. We would like to see that information. I would like to say this is just the first step of you entering in contact with us. What we do then, companies that register after that convention, but I encourage every supplier who is interested, go to the link on the suppliers tab. There's a little demonstration of interest form there, just fill it out. And then according to the needs of the project, we will be contacting you to follow our supply chain and procurement procedures, which include, of course, pre-qualification and screening. But do that because it really gives us it really gives us a demonstration that the business want to perform business with us, and we value that a lot. So encourage everyone.
Thanks, Barry. And I just saw a question there saying NSD is the National Supplier Database. So maybe it's an acronym that we've utilized there. A little bit, give you today a little bit of background and our commitments on the project. And I'm sure in quarters to come, it'll be more around reporting and providing in-depth information in terms of those subcontracts and goods and services where Ugandan companies have been involved. Thank you for listening to us today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. That was an elaborate discussion. We know that Mcdowmat and Sinopec are contractors for the EPA drilling and wells contractor. They highlighted the issue of on-job training, which I found very, very interesting, that they would be as much interested in having something as good as that in as much as they will have subcontractors and contractors, that they will pay particular attention to skilling these particular people. Aspects of measuring utilization, it's just not about having the laws in place and the requirements, but they will also be able to do a follow-up on whether some of these requirements and aspects are being fulfilled. On the issue of human rights, I can't say thank you enough, because that is very key. We are working in a very lucrative sector, but away from that, there could be instances, or there could be the workers and employees prone to human rights violations. But I love the fact that Sinopec and Mcdowmat are willing to pay attention to aspects of human rights, not only following up, but also doing training on issues of human rights. That, among a number of other aspects, of course, dealing with reducing the carbon footprint, because we still need the environment much more than it needs us, are key highlights that I picked up from this particular discussion. Now we continue to move on to discussing issues of drilling and wells. Remember, this is one of the issues that Idrissa talked about as key of the 3 building blocks. And allow me now invite Matthew Mugaga and Nick Tuma to speak about this.
And my presentation. Hello. Could you please confirm seeing my screen and presentation?
Yes, Nick.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present during the Supplier Development Forum. As you may have heard, my name is Nick Tuma. I'm HR Manager for Schlumberger, supporting our operations in East and Southern Africa. And joining this call is Matthew Mugaga, who's our Procurement Supply Manager, supporting our operations in Angola, East and Southern Africa. Just to note that Schlumberger isn't new to supporting oil and gas in Uganda. We did start out during the exploration phase, where we provided support to the operations that were going on. And we're now glad to be back, support with upstream activities that will range from drilling, surface wellhead, and completion. And I'll also touch on sustainability, which underpins our strategy as a company everywhere we work. So just to give you an to introduce Schlumberger to you, or to reintroduce Schlumberger to those that haven't heard about Schlumberger before, we are the leading provider of technology in the energy industry. We were founded on the premise of invention, and we continue to grow, prosper, and lead through continuous innovation and commitment to practical excellence that delivers superior results to all our clients. And that's who we are. With regard to our size, we are 86,000 employees worldwide, with 160 nationalities working for us. We do have we have operations in 90 countries, with access to expertise from 120 countries. Our operations worldwide are split into 5 basins, and these 5 basins are supported by 4 divisions, which are reservoir performance, well construction, digital integration, and production system. We define and drive high performance sustainably, and you will also see that sustainability is a key theme in everything that we do, and I'll explore on this in subsequent slides. Our purpose as an organization is to create amazing technology that unlocks access to energy for the benefit of all, and we look at doing all of this in a sustainable manner, which I'll also explore on later, and it also builds on our premise as an organization that technology is what we do, and we continue to improve what we have to make sure that we meet the demands of our clients and to make sure that we carry out safe and responsible operations for the benefit of the country and the communities where we operate. And they make us who we are as an organization. As you can see from the numbers above, we do have a wide range of diverse employees. And what we always do is we recruit where we work. So we hire people in the countries where we're working, we send them to different countries to get training, improve their expertise. And after they've attained a certain level of expertise and operations pick up in the countries where they come from, we do send them back to the countries where they come from to run the operations in their countries. And that's the same thing that will happen for Uganda and for the Ugandans that we have working in Schlumberger who aren't in Uganda. We will bring them back to support us with this project. I'll now speak about sustainability. We do have a comprehensive ESG program that underpins our strategy. And our strategy has to look at it broadly, there's three building blocks for our strategy. Our sustainability strategy. The first one is global stewardship. Under global stewardship, we look at carrying out our operations in a socially responsible way, being responsible with the environment, and creating a certain element of corporate governance to lead the programs that we're running as an organization. And the whole aim of our stewardship program is to ensure that we operate in a socially responsible way. We're able to create a positive community impact where we work, and we provide environmental leadership, especially in the industry where we are, everywhere we work. And these are the values that we as an organization will live out while working on the Tilenga project, and we ensure that all our employees live out these values everywhere we work. The second element of our sustainability strategy is the decarbonization. This is something that has taken the front lines in media recently, and it's a big concern to the world and to everyone that's interested in oil and gas. And as Schlumberger, we do appreciate that there is a need to provide affordable energy to our clients and to the communities where we work. However, we don't want to do this recklessly. We don't want to do this and have to pay for it later down the road. So what Schlumberger has done is a large portion of our technology and the tools that we'll be using during the Tilenga project is been classified as transitional technology, and it's part of our transitional technology portfolio, which drives superior business outcomes, and we're able to produce more energy with less carbon. So we are very intentional about reducing our carbon footprint and ensuring that we operate in a sustainable and socially responsible way. And the last aspect of our sustainability strategy is new energy. There has been an increased demand for somebody to get into this, and we have been able to enter it. As you can see from the slide, that our initial approach, our core business portfolio was oil and gas. However, through recent partnerships and new ventures, we have been able to get into new energy that ranges from hydrogen, geothermal, geoenergy, bioenergy, energy storage, and we're able to utilize all of this to build a leadership program within our industry, to be the leaders in our industry as we transition to a more sustainable energy mix that will be for the benefit of us and for those that will later come on to take our places. I would say that in a nutshell, what our strategy is we aim to carry out our operations in a socially responsible way, creating positive impact in the communities everywhere that we work, and reducing our carbon footprint and leading our industry into the transition into new energy. So I'll now touch briefly on our stewardship program, our global stewardship program, which we classify as our license to operate. So this is split into the social stewardship, which in which we invest heavily in our people and the communities where we operate, the environmental stewardship, where we work at reducing our carbon footprint, and corporate governance, which gives us the guidelines and principles that govern all the programs that we do. As you can see from the slide, that all the actions that we take in our stewardship program are anchored on the United Nations Social Development Goals, and you can see how each of them feature in what all our programs as they stand. And to your right, our aim is to lead the industry. That's why we've set these very ambitious timelines. As you can see from the timeline that we have, that we want to hit net zero by 2050 in the scope of our operations 1 through 3. And this is also shown because we'll soon be hitting our target rate, that Schlumberger is serious about reducing our carbon footprint and about making sure that we're operating, alluding to investing heavily in our communities, which is part of the programs that we'll roll out in that later on about training and building capacity. So this is where some of these will fall. I'm sharing technology. I'm sharing some of the technology that we have with them. The other thing is, through environmental stewardship, we try to live in a socially in Senegal. And last but not least is we look at reducing our footprint, and we take it seriously, as I mentioned earlier. And this we're doing of the hydrogenated electricity to ensure that we're supporting, we're backing up our talk with the actions that we have. And approach to local content. Matthew?
Thank you, Nick, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matthew Mugaga, and I'm the Procurement and Supply Manager for Schlumberger in Angola, East and South Africa. My fellow panelists for the wells, as well as their engineering. Our philosophy when it comes to 3 specific pillars, starting with investing in people. So why people and why is really built? Schlumberger has been in existence for so many years, and our ability to attract, develop, motivate, but most importantly, retain these outstanding individuals is the essential of the future of our business. We pride ourselves in being known in the industry as one of those companies that do train a lot and transfer knowledge and capacity to the different employees that we really take on. So in that regard, for this specific project, looking at the scopes of work that we do have, we show key talent such as field engineers, maintenance engineers, petrotechnical experts, many other areas. Some of you may ask that, as people from supply chain, for example, logistics, procurement, finance, there will be a lot of opportunities for all these people. And so our strategy in this case of diversity and encourage inclusion. And so we've gone out on a very aggressive strategy of ensuring by the year 2025, as we promote and push towards having 90% of our employees in philosophy is in-country value creation. And so here today, being a supplier dialogue, really, this is where to ensure that as a result of operations, they're given everything possible in terms of opportunities to compete with the various legislation that has been put in place to promote Ugandan companies, but also local content in general. So in that regard, we shall ensure that we not only meet those obligations, but strive to even supersede them in a very lawful, but also business, but mostly in exploration and appraisal drilling. However, our commitment again remains to ensure that we continue to engage via such services locally within Uganda and suppliers in the various services that we intend to achieve. We're already carrying out this. As you may know, we went through a massive tendering process with our customer, filled these tendering and bid documents. That doesn't mean that's the end of it all. We shall continue to, challenge the market, look out for anybody that has the capacity of knowledge and expertise. So in that, we are committed to ensure that at least 10 categories of services that we envisioned that as we create such engagements and value and categories, we are able to promote and offer more opportunities. How do we ensure that the investments we are making today do not only disappear tomorrow, but however, they will last the entire life of this project? This is a more than 25-year project. How do you ensure that the resources you've built, that the suppliers with whom you've worked hard to improve the various standards and processes are able to last the longevity of this project? So for that, we are committed to ensure that every year we increase our year-on-year spend with local suppliers, that where possible and where it's economically sensible for us as a business, we create strategic alliances that we do work with as many partners as we can to ensure that we year on year increase this local engagement and local spend. Ladies and gentlemen, the fundamentals of doing good business is by making sure that you explore every opportunity available in the market to give you the leverage to better serve your customer. That remains our commitment, and we do look forward to working with each one of you in the next 20 plus years in Uganda. Thank you so much. Nick, back to you.
All right, Nick, back to you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. And once again, we do appreciate the opportunity that Total has given us to partner with them in this project. And we are looking forward to boots on ground once the lockdown situation is worked out, hopefully this weekend. And we look forward to engaging with the Ugandans and to building capacity for our operations in Uganda. Thank you very much.
Very much, Nick and Matthew. In a sustainable way, especially when he talked about what I consider to be corporate social responsibility with the communities around and engaging them in each and everything that they do. And he talked about, as well, we did have Matthew talk about investing in people. It's very, very critical to invest in people, because at the end of the day, they are the ones you are working with. They are the resource, the most important resource that you are working with to operationalize the project that you were talking about. When he did talk about developing different categories and services in terms of having local suppliers and subcontractors come through to be a part of it by 2025. Earlier on, we did have Mr. Kwizera talk about the first oil drop probably coming in 2025, and Schlumberger is very, very ready to ensure that even those services that seem not ready as yet, there will be capacity building that is done, and above all, sustainable impact at the end of the day that will last the lifetime of the project, and even after, is a very key one to take home and talk about. Now, away from that, we will be talking about construction of water supply services. Remember when Mr. Kwizera was talking about the 3 building blocks that the Tilenga project is dealing with. He, of course, mentioned the enabling infrastructure. He talked about the surface facilities and drilling and wells. Earlier on, Nick and Matthew was talking about drilling and wells. And we will have, beautifully, a Ugandan company. Remember when he talked about the central processing facility that would be able to dissect, or would be able to separate the oil, the water, and then the gas, and then be able to send the crude oil through to the pipeline? How about the water that is going to be reused and taken back, as well as the gas that would be used as an energy? He talked about a Ugandan contractor, or a Ugandan company that has been contracted to deal with construction of water supply services. And in just a bit, I will be speaking to Mr. Frank Wesigabo from Gulf Consultants, Uganda. It's a Ugandan company that has been contracted to do the water supply systems. And we want to be looking at, coming now to you, Frank, who is with me here. We want to be looking at how you are actually considering promoting national content, in as much as you are actually a Ugandan contractor, a Ugandan company, but also looking at some of what the early achievements in the national content that you have as a contractor been able to register, and while working along the project, what kind of goods and services are you actively going to procure and participate in? The Ugandans would love to know, and everyone who is watching. Over to you.
My presentation is going to be threefold. It's going to first give some background on who we are, the nature of the contract that has been given,
yes, and
also how national content fits in the activities that have been accomplished practically.
Okay.
So Gulf Consults was formerly a company in Uganda that had been here for about 30 years called HP Gulf Engineer. Eventually, its ownership and management transitioned into Ugandan locals. By 2002, it had become a locally incorporated company, and it has fully transitioned into full ownership into the Ugandans. In other words, we've been able to inherit much of the skill and expertise that had come before, and we have been able to proceed with it.
Okay.
It has, originally it was dealing in sanitation, right now it has diversified into different fields. For example, water and sanitation, if we mention Maine, it's also in transport, for example, the Kingfisher Access Road in Bunyoro, and it has also been able to, also in Deje, many of these engineers have gone on to work in UNRWA, they've gone on to work in National Water. They've been the product of the mentoring that has come out from Gulf Consult. This Spares and Services. This company is one of the premier water well drilling companies within East Africa, and it has been able to, we've been able to form a strategic partnership as we progress through this contract. Now, Supplier, for any. And under this Tilanga project, you have several contractors who are going to need an adequate supply of that specific water. This is where GAF comes in, comes in to make sure that the administrative convenience needed so that companies don't have to compete for the natural resource is easily supplied within all these other companies. The contract takes on 3 specific phases. These phases are categorized as service units. Service unit 1 involves the planning of the water supply, which is both surface and groundwater. This usually covers trying to study the hydrological studies within the landscape, geophysical investigations. Then we have the second phase, which is the design, construction, and drilling, which is SU2 of the water facilities that are going to be used within this project for this term. And the third phase is the operation and maintenance of the water supply system. Now, at this stage, GAF has been able to complete phase 1.
Okay.
And when it comes to how we apply national content within the country, is that the law requires that it is optimized in 3 specific steps. First of all, when it comes to training and employment, it requires a substantial part of Ugandan labor force. When it comes to goods and services and its utilization, it also requires a substantial utilization of Ugandan goods and services, not just national, but regional and local, for where the project areas are going to work. They're going to be partaking. And also training and transfer of knowledge, from especially when it comes to these foreign companies that have had greater experience with dealing with this nature of work. So under this, their first phase, SU1, which currently GAF has completed, they committed a total of about 28,000 man-hours. And this has been categorized, it has been mostly technical in the sense that the nature of the work requires specialized fields. That is why most of it has been done by GAF staff. And they come in various disciplines. They're engineers, they're hydrologists, geologists, health and safety experts. Most of these have committed their staff, a support staff of about 20. So in this first phase, you'd say that there are about 28,500 man-hours that have been done by Ugandan employers, by Ugandan nationals, and this has been able to also project us. Nonetheless, there have been some few exceptions, getting some within the local community. For example, drivers and guides when it comes to site reconnaissance of various landscapes. We've also had training that has also taken place, health and safety, first aid injuries, and also defensive driving. This is just but a few of them, but these total to about 554 hours that have been committed to doing this. Now, we've also had the opportunity to have the experience that has come from DSS, which is a foreign company. It brought, when it came to under phase 1, they are needed to have when it comes to examining existing boreholes, camera testing, and test pumping, camera insertion to make sure that they're working, and also trying to develop a network of the water network and its abstraction. So DSS was able to provide the equipment. Okay. Much of that equipment, however, was it had local operators that came from the staff. Nonetheless, that has been a very useful tool in trying to provide the necessary transfer of knowledge that is required under national content. Now, we are now proceeding into the next stage. This is what you identify as the meat and potatoes of the meat and potatoes of the project.
Okay.
Yeah, the design, the construction, and installation of these water abstraction facilities. When I say water abstraction, what it means basically is the extraction of water from a natural resource that is going to be used for industrial purposes or agriculture. In this case, it would be industrial for many of the contractors that are there. So designing this equipment and constructing it, we've been able to, first of all, make sure that we address the local community. There are some jobs that are really reserved for here. That you have to be able to bring value within the place where you're going to have these constructions.
Yes.
So we've opened up certain vacancies that are reserved for electricians, plumbers, masons, painters, carpenters, logistics and storekeepers, casual laborers. Now, much of this is going to be advertised. There are different skill levels that are here involved. So it also necessitates a different form of advertising over the radio and also over the newspaper print in order to bring in these specific people that are within the local community. And if they're unavailable, then we can extend it further. We've also prepared several projects that are going to be able to at least bring a benefit in terms of training, like equipment handling, hazard awareness, social risk management, waste management, environmental management, to make sure that the community within which you're working, trying to add to the knowledge that is going to come within this area. Now, this stage is going to be the one that is going to usher in much of what is going to be needed in terms of human resource, in terms of also material resource. As of right now, in order to address it, having completed most of it, the goods and services that Gulf Consult has been able to procure within the area, at least as of right now, things like accommodation, things like fuel and transport, things like local hardware stores. When it comes to here, we have to utilize these facilities, those which are also on the national database, the national supplier database, and also those which are on the national oil and gas register. So these specific goods and services cannot come from anywhere else except from within the communities, which are in Bulisa, Hoima, Noya, and Pakwach. There are some that are actually pending, although they've also been used, security, for security companies, though right now we're trying to use the oil and gas police, and also much more to do with transportation and also foods and beverages. So many of these, we really foresee that the services are going to come from within the areas where they're going to be. And this is how we've been able to utilize the content that is required both locally and also regionally and nationally. Yes.
All right. You talk about water. You talked about potatoes and meat somewhere, and we were thinking about food. It's saying we're approaching lunchtime.
Yes.
But that's just a tongue-in-cheek. Water is a very important resource, and the way it is used, or if the water and the oil and then the gas is separated, are we seeing water recycling, that optimal water usage going to be a process that is undertaken by Gulf consultants?
Yes, we're going to be able to also have to make water treatment facilities. For example, whenever this water is being extracted, there's a bit of damage that comes to the land, and somewhere after it's used, there has to be a place where it can be, manage the environment in general.
Yes.
Also to make sure that the surrounding community, because all these people develop their livelihood from within this area. So when we're trying to make sure that we're going to have this kind of distribution, that everything is maintained to a very...
About 554 hours of training in health and safety and defensive driving, and then over 28,000 man-hours and working with them. And these are skills that some do not have.
What is a capacity building program?
Yes.
This has been incorporated within the system. What happens is, I had mentioned earlier that, as part of Gulf Consult's programs every year, you get students from universities, engineers, and those are the ones meant and trained. Now, when this equipment is finally, that we've leveled the field to say that this is going to be 100% Ugandan effort, this is where all these other people are going to come in to make sure that they're going to be trained into equipment handling, to make sure that they're going to be trained into how these things are going to be done for over the next, even within the local community, to make sure that we're going to have workshops that are going to give out certificates for specific things, for specific programs that are going to be trained on.
Okay.
Yes.
And then also, do we have timelines that have been tagged? Do we expect some of these to be concluded that we can fully appreciate the projects and the programs that are forthcoming?
Nature of this activity is about making sure that every contract, so you drill in the ground, look for the water, find it, and make sure you're going to channel it to exactly where these guys want it.
Fire, you find the water.
Yes, we have to find it.
Okay.
Either so, yeah. So when you're going to have to, it's going to be very progressive, and eventually, I don't think it falls within the category of one drop of oil. And getting the timeline.
All right. Thank you very much. That's been Frank Westgabo, who is currently the National Content Specialist for Gulf Consultants, Uganda, specializing in corporate and commercial litigation as well, and strategic partnerships, and how Ugandan local companies can be able to work with some of these international. How can we deal with partnerships in the best way possible and be able to get questions that you have sent through in.
Energy is life. We all need it, and it's a source of progress. So today, to contribute to the sustainable development of the planet facing the climate challenge, we are moving forward together towards new energies. Energy is reinventing itself, and this energy journey is ours. Our ambition is to be a world-class player in the energy transition.
Down by Tullow Oil to Sinuk and Total E&P Uganda. In all its operations worldwide, Total Energies considers national content as a key component for the success of its operations, and Total E&P Uganda is no exception. Total E&P Uganda therefore developed a national content strategy aimed at developed in line with the national content regulations of Uganda. Subsequently, the company has undertaken a number of initiatives sector. Some of these initiatives include the organization as well as available opportunities to supply goods and services. Suppliers are also provided with information on the procurement and national content needs and processes to help them meet the anticipated demands of the project while ensuring adherence to the highest standards of quality, health, safety, and environment.
There's a lot of detail explained in order for them to go back and be able to participate competitively in our tendering processes.
In March 2018, the company launched the Welders Training and Certification Program aimed at improving the employability of Ugandans from the Albertine region and East African crude oil, developing a domestic pool of internationally certified welders. The first and second cohorts graduated in October 2019, following a training that was closely supervised by the GIZ E4D SOGA program.
May you use this training well and make the most of it to benefit yourselves, your family, your community, and your country. This graduation is not an end, it's a start.
Safety environment training and the development of the Industry Enhancement Center. Total E&P overall development of the oil project in Uganda.
The day the world stopped was the day we found where to go. Because we've learned to savor the moments that were always there, and they never tasted this good.
Contribute to the sustainable development of the planet facing the climate challenge. We are moving forward together towards new energies. Energy is reinventing itself, and this energy journey is ours. Our ambition is to be a world warming and becoming Total Energies.
Welcome back from the short commercial break, and a special thank you once again to Total Energies and all the partners who put together this discussion, which is a number of aspects we've talked about. We've talked to contractors and sectors. Now, throughout the discussion, like I earlier on said before we went for so much doing things by ourselves and probably do not know those questions using the hashtag Total Energies development, and we will be giving you, we will be having all those questions answered in the next one, the session right after Mr. Dennis Kakembo speaks to us as you get to come through. Many people would like to know what this strategic and start transacting. As I speak to us briefly about him, he is the managing partner at Crystal Advocates and a corporate and commercial law, that is a corporate and commercial law firm in Kampala. He's a UK trained energy and tax professional, but he is also as well qualified both as a lawyer and chartered accountant. Huge CV. I'll stop it at that because of matters of time. Let's talk joint ventures and.
Good afternoon, viewers.
Feel free to get your microphone as close and to yours.
And that word has been joint ventures, joint ventures. The previous speaker, Frank, when he was here, he mentioned that Gulf Consultants is actually in a joint venture with DSS, a Kenyan company. When the Mcdowmat team was speaking, they mentioned to us that they are in a joint venture with Sinopec.
Yes.
The oil and gas industry is one which is anchored on joint ventures. I will not cite many examples because if I were to go into that, especially global examples, you actually find that all oil projects in the world are undertaken by consortium. Has been one that has been undertaken by joint ventures. Heritage Oil undertaken through a joint venture. If you go into the US, you might fly KLM or you might fly KQ, and when you get to Schiphol in Amsterdam, you're going to business and synergies. So why do we have these joint ventures in the oil and gas industry? First and foremost, the oil and gas industry is a huge one. Because it's a huge industry, it makes a lot of sense that you go this project, not tenders which are awarded tend to be huge. Like as you heard, the Tilenga EPC project is going to cost about $2 billion. That is significant. And even in terms of what they're used to. Secondly, joint ventures serve as a means of sharing in the risk. The oil and gas industry is one that is beset with so many risks, and it's also an industry of high standards. If you recall, sometime back in 2010, there was an incident in the Gulf of Mexico, Macondo incident, where an oil well blew out and the environment was that cost alone. Or even as a subcontractor, you're going to take up, if you're alone, you may not be able to take up that risk. Then $3 million, and your annual turnover has been probably $200,000. How are you going to be able to partake in this project if you don't look out and participate in this with other parties? It's also, lastly, a means of skill sharing, pulling together of expertise, and it's expected, as has been mentioned, that we are entering into the subcontracting phase. The law is cognizant, are fully aware of the sustainability agenda, and they need to integrate the locals so as to earn the social life. As locals is that this is a complex industry that requires a lot of technology and expertise. Going to work with local companies in joint ventures. So how are you positioning to be able to attract? I'll hint that in a bit. The types of joint ventures, when you're exploring a joint venture, joint ventures take two broad forms. It could be a joint venture that is incorporated, that is actually not incorporated. In law, we call it a contractual joint ventures, where they mandate in terms of work they're going to execute. Now, before entering into it, foremost, is it your strategic objective? Behind scenes, look out for organizations with whom you share a culture, for organizations with whom your business ethics are reconcilable. And then you'll also have done a due diligence to fully appreciate that indeed that is you're not going to be the only party. So that means you must be attractive. So many of our businesses are family run, they're family organized, they have not outgrown the founder syndrome. I'm the alpha and omega of the organization. But when you go into a joint venture, decisions are going to be made jointly. So you need to have proper systems and structures and legacy that is going to attract other players to come and work with you. Then once you've determined that you can enter into a joint venture with that party, agreement, or if you've incorporated a company with various parties into it, you have what they call a shareholder agreement. And some of the issues you have to set out in this joint venture: active ownership interests in the JV, appointment of key management, resource and capital mobilization, monitoring of joint venture performance, termination, the term and duration of the joint venture. As a last word, it's a huge opportunity where every one of us can take part into it, and an easier means of actually getting into the oil and gas space. Increasingly, many Ugandan companies bidding for some of these opportunities, but coming together, because when you come together, you're able to create a much more attractive proposition. You're able to marshal more resources together so that you'll be able to meet some of the financial requirements and even accommodate a little more risk.
Okay.
Now, putting together, you always look out for professional support. As we had previously from Pamela Alinda, because you've not prepared the most viable joint venture structure, you might find yourself not
joint ventures and strategic partnerships. We'll still have him, and with the questions that are coming through, we'll answer them. We're left with just a few minutes to be ending this, but let me start with you, Mr. Idrissa. And someone is asking, why is there emphasis on highest international oil and gas standards when Uganda entrepreneurs are new entrants as compared to those in the other oil-producing countries, mentioned Dubai, who have been in the business for actually a very long time? And I think...
Much, Mildred. So the question is, why is there emphasis on high standards?
And yet we're new.
And yet we're new. So the simple answer to our viewers and those interested is because of the health and safety considerations. This is a high-risk industry, and as a project proponent, we care about the safety of our people, we care about protecting the environment, and we don't want to put anybody in harm's way. And that's why we have communicated the level of standards. But the good news, Mildred, is that these standards are achievable. Some of the cutting them. Where the standards are still so high that need significant level of investment, my colleague talked about joint ventures. So these are achievable. Everywhere in the world where the industry has been new, they have had to go through a learning curve, and we'll also go through the same. Okay. But the main reason is because this is a high-risk business, and we need to protect the lives of our people and protect the environment.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe Jason is still on. James Mushariri. One is asking, what are the requirements for a foreign company to register on the national database, national suppliers database? And another one is, can a company apply to ensure that it is kept up to date?
Thank you, Mildred. I would start with the first question of an international company. It's for an international company.
Okay.
So the international company has to prove that, one, it's legally incorporating from, and it also has to prove that it's meeting the social obligations in terms of social security and paying for the workers. So that is embassies of Uganda in those countries and the embassies of those countries in Uganda to make sure that these companies actually exist and they meet all those conditions, and they are not fake companies. So we make sure we do proper due diligence. In terms of the second question, a person currently a person sends an email, which I read, to be able to log in with their credentials and change the information.
Okay.
In terms of bidding without being registered on the Nsd, the law says you cannot provide, and at the end you're not yet registered, and the company has gone through that contracting process. So what the licensees usually do, they make it a requirement for you to participate in the bid process to first provide proof that you actually...
This one to Jason. Jason, if you are still online, one is asking, how do we register to be included in the supplier database of Mcdowmat? One is asking, if the company is registered in the supplier database and is representing 20 other companies as a sole agent, do those 20 companies have to be registered as well on the Nsd? And then also another one is asked registering on the Nsd.
Thank you. The Nsd is for a person who is going to provide a good or services. So it is contract whose names are going to appear should be on the NSD. So if I am James and company, and of course I am representing 20, but the contract is coming to me as James, not seeing the other people in the back, then I don't have to register all the 20. But if all the 20 are going to appear on the contract, or they will have parts of the contract and they will sign some documents, then they all should be registered on the NSD. So it is a contract holder. Number two, the second question you talked about is are all during contracting? Just again?
At the bidding phase, will the contractors be requested for documentation, which they've already
I must clarify this. We ask for basic information. The PAU asks for basic information as far as registration on the NSD is concerned. And registration on the NSD does not mean that you're getting a contract with the licensee or subcontractor, and it does not mean that you've been pre-qualified by them to do the process. So there is another pre-qualification process that the licensees and the IDRISs do to ensure that you are able to participate, because they are now looking out for more than we're looking out for. They are looking out for health and safety. You heard about standards. They are looking about for your practices. So some of these documents may come again and be asked, but just know that at NSD they're asking for basic information. At pre-qualification it's a more detailed, and you might have to submit some of the recent information. Remember, on the NSD you're there for 3 years, and some of these documents expire. For example, your tax clearance might expire during the period you're going to be, yet you're still on the NSD. So you may be asked to submit some of this information again.
All right, thank you very much. I'm told Jason is back. And Jason, the question was, how does one register to be included on the supplier database of Mcdowmat?
So there's two ways to be able to do that, Mildred. Just to confirm, you can hear me? Thank you. So there are two ways. Part of that presentation was a way of registering for the Telenga specific project. We showed that on the last slide, and we'll be able to pass that on to anybody that's required. You can also go onto our Mcdowmat website. There is a registration of suppliers there. Another just a point that I'd like to reiterate is that we also have a bidders list that was developed during the feed phase, and also that forms part of our contract with Total Energies. So many of the subcontractors that we've had in the past are already incorporated into that bidders list.
I'll be getting back to you. One is to Pamela, and Pamela, the one that's coming through to you is, one person is asking, is insurance one of the services that Ugandan companies will provide? That's going to Pamela. And secondly, is ISO certification a regulatory requirement for the service industry suppliers?
Oh, yes, we are in the preparatory stages to launch a call for tender to put together right insurance policies for the project, and I think we already issued expressions of interest in the local media, so I'm sure some of you may have picked that up. So the answer is yes. Is ISO certification a regulatory requirement for service industry suppliers? That would depend on the scope of work. So certain pieces of work need certain certification by recognized bodies. And for such scopes, yes, ISO certification may be in place, because really that's what ISO is all about, the scope of work.
I'll let you go. Just one more. One is asking, does Total Energies undertake its own qualification processes? As we've seen in the newspapers, someone is asking that.
Yes, I think James touched on this. Yes, you can, because what the National Supplier Database does is to pick up basic information, requirements like tax experience to be engaged in a particular scope of work, but you're able to do something else. So yes, a question where you are not properly experienced in.
Before we get to wind up this, but before we get here, or the strategic partnerships, since we're talking about those in the oil and gas sector.
Okay. Contractual and company law. A joint venture. So the law that would help, that means you have to establish a company, and the law which would come in would actually be the companies, the petroleum exploration, production, Act or even the midstream law must have with the foreign company.
Okay, so which companies are Total Energies expected to sign definitive agreements with in August, September?
First mentioning that currently we have signed what we call conditional letter of award with some contractors, especially Mcdowmat Sinopec for the EPSCC, Schlumberger for some drilling activities and other companies. So this conditional letter of award, we have to sign the final agreement and with all the exhibits. And the Schlumberger for some contract regarding Christmas will be signed in August at award, and we have presented some activities during this.
If you are on, one is asking how they. Matthew?
The national pre-qualifications or to invite in our tenders. So really, if there is one app, our first tool for supply identification.
1 minute to you, Mr. Idris, and as well to our regulator for your final comments. I know.
Thank you to everyone who has taken their time of change. Today was a focus on share. We encourage everybody to participate. We encourage all those who have.
All right, and I'll end up with you, Mr.
Supplier development engagement. It was enlightening, and I think has reached a stage where it is heating up. There, Ugandans have participated in the past in well-grounded or well-landed in terms of Ugandans to participate. And therefore, if we are not yet landed in the supplier database, I encourage participate and make sure we gain from the industry. It is our industry. 25,
that's when you will have that first oil drop. But before then, what is the process? How much have you engaged? How much have you, a special thank you to Total Energies and a special thank you to Mr. Jean-Yves Poulet, who's been representing of those engagements that Total Energies will ensure that everyone gets on board, gets a supplier development, DEVT for the short form of development, and all the other questions as well will be answered. Have you registered on the National Supplier Database? If no, please go ahead. That will be an opportunity for you to be a service provider or a goods provider. Bless you. Up next is NBS Live at 1.
Energy is life. We all need it, and it's a source of progress.